Chapter 1. The Message That Changed How I See Everything. I didn't scream. I didn't drop the phone. I didn't ask why. When my husband ended our marriage with a text and emptied our bank account, the world didn't collapse all at once. It stayed strangely calm. And that was the moment I understood something most people never do. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is preparation. My name is Rachel, I'm 41, and this is the story of what happened next. I was folding tissue paper around a silk blouse when my phone buzzed against the glass counter, the kind of quiet vibration you barely notice until it keeps happening. Outside my boutique, the late afternoon sun turned the sidewalk gold and made the window display look like something staged on purpose. Inside, everything smelled faintly of cedar hangers and the vanilla candle I always lit near the register. The playlist was soft and familiar. The air felt steady, safe. A woman in her 50s stood near the fitting room mirror, holding a navy wrap dress to her waist, turning slightly left and right, as if she could see her future from a different angle. She looked at me and gave a small, hopeful smile. I smiled back. That was the rhythm of my days. People walked in carrying stories, and for a few minutes I helped them feel like themselves again. My phone buzzed a second time, then a third. I glanced down, expecting a vendor or a reminder about inventory. The name on the screen stopped me. Daniel, my husband. 49 years old, 12 years married. A man who loved to call himself logical, calm, above drama, even though he could create tension in a room without raising his voice. I wiped my fingertips on the edge of the tissue paper and picked up the phone, already feeling a small pulse of dread, the kind I had tried to ignore for months. A long message filled the screen. I want a divorce. I am done. I am not coming home tonight. I have moved on with someone who actually makes me feel alive again. You have been dragging me down for years. You are 41 and you act like you are 60. I deserve better than this life. And before you start begging, I already handled the money. I emptied the joint account. I am not funding your little boutique fantasy anymore. Do not call me. Do not embarrass yourself. Just accept it for once. I read it once, then again. The words stayed the same, sharp and deliberate, like he had rehearsed them in his head while he sat somewhere feeling proud of himself. My stomach tightened so fast it felt like a hand closing around it. Heat rose up my throat. For a second, everything in the shop went too bright, too crisp, like my senses were trying to capture every detail in case my life split open right here between the cash register and the jewelry display. The customer by the mirror asked, "Are you okay, honey?" I looked up too quickly. My face must have changed because her expression softened and she lowered the dress, suddenly unsure whether she should even be here. I forced my mouth into something polite. "I am fine, just a work thing. I am sorry. Let me ring you up." My body moved on autopilot. I folded the dress, slid it into a bag, tucked in tissue paper like I had done 1,000 times, and tied a ribbon with hands that felt strangely steady. I ran her card, thanked her, told her it looked beautiful on her. My voice came out calm, almost normal, which made my skin prickle with disbelief. She hesitated at the door. "If you need anything," she began. I nodded quickly, cutting off the warmth before it could crack me open. "Thank you. I appreciate it." The bell over the door chimed when she left. Bright, cheerful, completely wrong for the moment. When the shop went quiet again, my phone buzzed once more. I did not even need to look to feel the weight of what was happening. The sentence that landed hardest was not the divorce, it was the money. I emptied the joint account. That was not a breakup. That was a threat. That was him reaching for the lever he believed would make me panic. The joint account was our mortgage payment, our utilities, our cushion, the thing that made life feel manageable. He knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't just leaving, he was trying to make sure I could not stand up straight while he walked away. Then there was the other line, the one that stung with a different kind of cruelty. You are 41 and you act like you are 60. It was the way he wrote it, like age was a flaw, like peace was a weakness, like a woman was supposed to stay young and shiny and easy to impress, or accept being replaced. The humiliation in it was subtle, almost casual, which made it worse. I waited for tears. I waited for the sob that people expect. I waited for my knees to buckle. Instead, something colder moved through me. Not numbness exactly, clarity. The kind you get after living with a low-grade dread for so long that when the disaster finally arrives, part of you thinks, of course, there it is. Because I wasn't completely surprised. Not truly. For months, there had been small fractures I kept stepping over, odd charges that didn't make sense, a new cologne, his phone always face down, the laugh when I asked about a restaurant bill from a place we'd never been together, the way he started going to the gym late at night, the way he looked at me like he was already somewhere else, and the jokes, always the jokes. You are so serious, he would say. You never have fun anymore. You're turning into an old lady. I had told myself it was stress, a midlife slump, work pressure. I had done what so many women do when they want to keep their world intact. I had made excuses and swallowed discomfort because swallowing felt easier than exploding. My phone buzzed a second time, then a third. I glanced down, expecting a vendor or a reminder about inventory. The name on the screen stopped me. Daniel, my husband. 49 years old, 12 years married. A man who loved to call himself logical, calm, above drama, even though he could create tension in a room without raising his voice. I wiped my fingertips on the edge of the tissue paper and picked up the phone, already feeling a small pulse of dread, the kind I had tried to ignore for months. A long message filled the screen. I want a divorce. I am done. I am not coming home tonight. I have moved on with someone who actually makes me feel alive again. You have been dragging me down for years. You are 41 and you act like you are 60. I deserve better than this life. And before you start begging, I already handled the money. I emptied the joint account. I am not funding your little boutique fantasy anymore. Do not call me. Do not embarrass yourself. Just accept it for once. I read it once, then again. The words stayed the same, sharp and deliberate, like he had rehearsed them in his head while he sat somewhere feeling proud of himself. My stomach tightened so fast it felt like a hand closing around it. Heat rose up my throat. For a second, everything in the shop went too bright, too crisp, like my senses were trying to capture every detail in case my life split open right here between the cash register and the jewelry display. The customer by the mirror asked, "Are you okay, honey?" I looked up too quickly. My face must have changed because her expression softened and she lowered the dress, suddenly unsure whether she should even be here. I forced my mouth into something polite. "I am fine, just a work thing. I am sorry. Let me ring you up." My body moved on autopilot. I folded the dress, slid it into a bag, tucked in tissue paper like I had done 1,000 times, and tied a ribbon with hands that felt strangely steady. I ran her card, thanked her, told her it looked beautiful on her. My voice came out calm, almost normal, which made my skin prickle with disbelief. She hesitated at the door. "If you need anything," she began. I nodded quickly, cutting off the warmth before it could crack me open. "Thank you. I appreciate it." The bell over the door chimed when she left. Bright, cheerful, completely wrong for the moment. When the shop went quiet again, my phone buzzed once more. I did not even need to look to feel the weight of what was happening. The sentence that landed hardest was not the divorce, it was the money. I emptied the joint account. That was not a breakup. That was a threat. That was him reaching for the lever he believed would make me panic. The joint account was our mortgage payment, our utilities, our cushion, the thing that made life feel manageable. He knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't just leaving. He was trying to make sure I could not stand up straight while he walked away. Then there was the other line, the one that stung with a different kind of cruelty. You are 41 and you act like you are 60. It was the way he wrote it, like age was a flaw, like peace was a weakness, like a woman was supposed to stay young and shiny and easy to impress, or accept being replaced. The humiliation in it was subtle, almost casual, which made it worse. I waited for tears. I waited for the sob that people. Chapter 2. That night, sitting in the back office with my pen still warm from writing his words down, I finally admitted something I had been pushing away for months. I had not been blindsided by what Daniel did. I had been slowly trained to doubt myself. If I trace it honestly, the signs began in late spring, when our life still looked perfectly normal to anyone standing outside it. Daniel still kissed my cheek before work, still complained about traffic, still sent casual texts in the afternoon asking what I wanted for dinner. We showed up to birthdays, we smiled at neighbors. From a distance, we looked solid. But inside my body, something had started to feel off. The first crack was easy to dismiss. A Thursday night when he said a planning meeting ran late. He came home close to midnight, hair damp, smelling faintly of a citrus cologne he had never bought. I asked lightly, trying to sound uninterested, "Did you change your cologne?" He shrugged without looking at me. "Someone at the office wears it. It got on my jacket. Relax." Relax became his answer to everything. A week later, I noticed a charge on our joint credit card from a downtown restaurant with linen tablecloths and a long reservation list. It was not a place we ever went, not because we could not afford it, but because Daniel always said it was overpriced. I mentioned it while unloading groceries, my hands busy so my voice would stay steady. "Hey, do you remember going to Marlowe House recently? I saw a charge." He laughed like I had made a joke. "You were always checking up on me. It was a client dinner. That is literally my job." I nodded. I accepted it because it sounded reasonable and because wanting something to be true can feel safer than questioning it. After that, the changes stopped arriving one at a time. They came in clusters. Daniel started going to the gym late at night. Sometimes he left after dinner. Sometimes early Saturday mornings when we used to sleep in together. He took phone calls outside. His phone stayed face down on the counter, and whenever a notification lit up the screen, he flipped it over instantly. One evening, we were watching a show when his phone buzzed. I saw a name I did not recognize, just a first name, Kelsey. I asked carefully, "Who is Kelsey?" He did not look at me. "Someone from work. Why?" The why felt like a trap. If I answered honestly, I would sound suspicious. If I dropped it, I would be betraying myself. So I said, "Just curious." He finally turned, irritation flashing across his face. "God, you are exhausting sometimes. It's like you're always waiting for something to be wrong." That was how he did it. He did not deny, he redirected. He made the question feel unreasonable. And because I did not want to become the woman people whispered about, the paranoid wife, I went quiet. It wasn't just secrecy. It was how he started talking to me, like I was something he had outgrown, like my life had become boring simply because it was stable. One night, I mentioned how strong sales had been at the boutique, how the summer dresses were moving faster than expected. The business had grown steadily, quietly, something I was proud of. Daniel barely looked up from his phone. Must be nice playing store owner while I handle the real bills. Playing? The store pays half the mortgage, Daniel. You know that. He rolled his eyes. Sure, whatever helps you sleep. I told myself he was stressed, that insecurity made people cruel, that this was temporary. But my body disagreed. My shoulders tightened before he walked in the door. My stomach clenched when his phone buzzed. I started waking up at 3 in the morning, my mind racing through numbers and dates I did not want to think about. By July, I was doing something I felt ashamed of, even in private. I opened the Notes app on my phone and started writing things down. Dates, charges, comments. Not because I wanted proof for anyone else, but because I needed proof for myself. One afternoon, my friend Marissa stopped by the boutique with iced coffee. She watched me rearrange the same rack of blouses for the third time and finally said, "Okay, what is going on?" I tried to laugh it off. "Nothing, just tired." She leaned against the counter. "You're doing that thing where you pretend you're fine, but your eyes are somewhere else." I lowered my voice. "I think Daniel is hiding something." She didn't gasp or judge. She just asked, "What makes you think that?" So I told her everything. The charges, the phone, the way he talked to me, the name on the screen. When I finished, she said quietly, "You're not crazy, you're paying attention." "I don't want to be the wife who snoops," I said. "Protecting yourself is not snooping," she replied. "It's survival. Know where your money is, and don't confront him until you're ready." That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, heart pounding. I logged into our joint account and scrolled through transactions. Hotels listed as business travel, restaurants on nights he said he worked late, a jewelry store charge that made my hands go cold. I took screenshots and emailed them to myself, then deleted the sent email. The fact that I knew to do that frightened me. The next day, I walked into a small local credit union during my lunch break. I told the woman at the desk, "I want to open an account in my name only." She smiled calmly and slid the paperwork toward me. I filled it out with shaking hands. I didn't move money yet. I still hoped I was wrong. But knowing it existed felt like placing a quiet safety net under my life. In early August, Daniel sent me a text while I was at the boutique. "You should start thinking about what you would do if you had to take care of yourself." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means you depend on me too much. It's not attractive, and you're not getting older." That was when something inside me went still. He wasn't hiding his contempt anymore. He was practicing it. The following week, I met with a family law attorney. I told her I was scared I was overreacting. She listened, then said, "Keep records. Don't act emotionally. Quiet preparation matters." I left knowing one thing for certain. His cruelty was not random. It was a pattern. And every word he sent was not just hurting me. It was documenting him. By the time he finally tried to end everything months later, my heartbreak was real, but so was my certainty. Preparation was not suspicion. It was survival. The things I noticed long before he left. Chapter 3. When everyone else believed him. The next morning carried a different kind of weight. Not sharp like the night before, but dense and pressing, as if the air itself expected something from me. I woke up before high alarm, stared at the ceiling, and felt the absence of Daniel in a way that was quieter but more invasive. His side of the bed was untouched, no dent in the pillow, no warmth. It was as if he had never slept there at all. I went through my routine mechanically. Coffee brewed, shower steamed, clothes chosen with no real thought beyond comfort and coverage. When I unlocked the boutique, the familiar bell rang, bright and ordinary, and for a moment I almost believed I could step back into the version of my life where nothing had fractured yet. Then my phone buzzed. It was not Daniel. It was his sister, Elaine. I let it ring twice before answering, already bracing myself. "Rachel," she said, her tone carefully measured, "I just wanted to check in. Daniel said you've both agreed to take some space." Taking some space. The phrase was so gentle it felt manipulative, like a soft blanket thrown over something rotting underneath. "I'm handling things," I said evenly. "Thank you for reaching out." She hesitated. "He's been really worried about you." That almost made me laugh. Worried how? He says you've been intense lately, questioning his spending, tracking things. He's concerned you might spiral. Spiral. The word landed quietly but firmly like a stamp pressed on my forehead. Did he mention draining our joint account? I asked. There was a pause, just long enough to notice. He said there were financial issues he needed to protect himself from, she said. I don't know the details. I just don't want this to get ugly. Ugly. That was the real concern. Not fairness, not truth, discomfort. I'm not planning to make anything ugly. I'm handling this through proper channels. Elaine exhaled, as if disappointed. Just be careful. People are talking. When the call ended, I stood behind the counter, hands resting flat against the wood, breathing slowly until the tightness in my chest eased. Proper channels. People are talking. Those phrases echoed through my head as the morning unfolded. By midday, the shift in how people treated me was unmistakable. Denise walked in around noon. She had been a regular for years, the kind of customer who lingered and chatted and hugged me hello. This time, she stopped just inside the door and looked around as if she had wandered into the wrong place. "Hey," she said cautiously, "you doing okay?" "I'm okay. How are you?" She nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. "I heard you and Daniel might be going through something." The way she said might felt deliberate, like she was offering me a chance to deny it so she could remain comfortable. "I'm handling it," I said. She pursed her lips. "Marriage is complicated. Usually there's fault on both sides." Both sides, another phrase people used when they wanted a situation to feel balanced, even when it wasn't. I smiled politely. "I appreciate your concern." Denise picked up a bracelet, turned it in her fingers, then set it back down. "Just don't be bitter," she said lightly. "Life's too short." When she left, the bell sounded harsher than usual. Bitter. That word followed me around the shop like a shadow, because bitterness wasn't what I felt. What I felt was pressure. Pressure to be agreeable, pressure to stay quiet, pressure to make everyone else comfortable so they wouldn't have to question the story they'd already accepted. As the afternoon wore on, messages came in from people I rarely heard from. An aunt texted to remind me to keep my dignity and not air dirty laundry. A neighbor avoided eye contact in the parking lot. 2 friends I normally texted every week didn't respond at all. It was subtle but unmistakable. They were choosing distance. That evening, Daniel's mother called. Patricia had always been polite in a formal way, as if I were a guest who had overstayed her welcome. I hesitated before answering, already knowing this wouldn't be comfort. "Rachel," she said, skipping any greeting, "I need you to stay calm." "I am calm," I replied. She made a sound that could have been disapproval. "Daniel says you've been accusing him of things without proof. He says you've been unstable." Unstable, again. "He ended our marriage by text and emptied the joint account." There was a pause, heavier this time. "I don't know what arrangements you two had, but I know my son. He wouldn't act cruelly without a reason." The certainty in her voice made my hands go cold. She wasn't asking what happened. She'd already decided. "I'm not going to argue with you," I said. "I'm handling this legally." "Legally," she repeated as if the word itself offended her. "You don't need lawyers. You need to think about how this looks, about the family." Always appearance, always reputation. "Patricia, I have to go." "Don't make a spectacle. That never ends well for women." I ended the call without raising my voice, because anger would only hurt me. That night, sitting in my car after closing the shop, I felt the isolation settle in fully. The parking lot lights hummed, my reflection stared at me in the windshield, eyes tired, jaw tight. For the first time, I felt the temptation to give in. Not to forgive Daniel, not to beg him back, but to surrender to the pressure, to let him have his version of events so everyone would stop looking at me like I was the problem. It would be easier, I thought, to disappear quietly than to stand alone. I opened my phone and hovered over Marissa's contact, then closed it. Marissa would tell me the truth, and right then I needed something steadier, something structured. I called the attorney I'd spoken to months earlier and left a message. "This is Rachel," I said carefully. "He drained the joint account. His family is calling me unstable. I need guidance, not revenge, protection." She called back the next morning. "Rachel," she said calmly, "this is a common pattern. When someone controls the narrative early, others repeat it. Your job isn't to convince them." "I feel judged everywhere I go," I admitted. "That's because you are," she said plainly. "But judgment doesn't decide outcomes. Records do. Timelines do. Facts do." "So what do I do when they tell me to stay quiet?" I asked. "You stay quiet where emotion would hurt you, and you speak clearly where it matters. Written communication, bank records, legal filings, not family calls, not social explanations." The clarity in her voice steadied me. After the call, I sat at my kitchen table, phone face up, the urge to defend myself buzzing under my skin. I wanted to explain. I wanted to correct. I wanted them to see. Instead, I imagined Daniel watching me unravel, watching me prove his version right. I would not give him that. I opened my notes app and typed a single sentence. "I will not argue with people committed to misunderstanding me." Then I put my phone on silent. The loneliness didn't disappear. It lingered in the quiet apartment, in the empty side of the bed, in the messages that never came. But beneath it, something steadier took root. Resolve. I didn't need their approval to stand firm. I didn't need their permission to protect my life. If they chose to believe him, that was their choice. The truth didn't require witnesses. I washed my mug, folded the next day's shipment list, and set my alarm. Small acts that reminded me I was still moving forward, carefully, deliberately, even if I had to do it alone. Chapter 4. The Day His Confidence Cracked. What came next did not look like justice the way people imagine it. There were no raised voices, no dramatic confrontations, no sudden confession that made everything clear in one moment. It arrived quietly, through scheduled meetings, formal emails, and rooms that smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner. It arrived through process. The first meeting with my attorney after everything went public happened on the gray Tuesday morning. Laura Myers sat across from me at a round table, her laptop open, a yellow legal pad beside it. She had the calm focus of someone who had seen every version of this story and knew exactly how it usually ended when people panicked. "Before we talk strategy," she said, "I need you to understand something. This phase will feel slow. That does not mean nothing is happening." I nodded. I had already learned that lesson the hard way. I slid the folder toward her. Bank statements, screenshots, copies of messages printed and highlighted, dates written carefully in the margins. She looked through them one by one, not rushing, not reacting. "Walk me through the timeline," she said. "Start with the first withdrawal." I told her. When I noticed the balance, when I saw the transaction, when the text arrived, when his sister called, when his mother accused me of being unstable. Laura wrote quietly, then looked up. Consistency matters. Courts do not care who cries harder. They care who can demonstrate pattern. The word pattern felt grounding. It meant this was no longer just my experience. It was something that could be shown. We filed a motion for temporary financial relief. No accusations of infidelity, no character attacks, just a request to freeze joint accounts, restore access, and prevent further unilateral action while the case proceeded. "This is not a win," Laura warned me. "It is a pause, a reset. Judges move cautiously, especially early." The first hearing was nothing like television. No wooden benches, no jury box, no dramatic silence. It was a small conference room with a mediator, two attorneys, and a long table that felt too narrow for the weight sitting on it. Daniel sat across from me in a navy suit I recognized, the one he wore when he wanted to look responsible. He did not meet my eyes at first. His posture was relaxed, confident, like someone who believed this was a misunderstanding that would resolve itself. His attorney spoke smoothly. My client took reasonable steps to protect himself financially due to concerning behavior from his spouse. I felt my chest tighten, the familiar urge to defend myself rising. Laura's hand rested lightly on my arm under the table. Stay still. When she spoke, her voice was even. We have documentation showing a complete withdrawal of joint funds within hours of marital abandonment. We also have written communication in which Mr. Carter acknowledges this action and uses it as leverage. She slid copies across the table. The mediator read silently, flipping pages slowly. "Mr. Carter," he said, looking up, "can you explain the timing of this withdrawal?" Daniel cleared his throat. "I was advised to secure assets. I was concerned my wife might act irrationally." Laura leaned forward. "This message was sent 2 hours after the withdrawal. In it, Mr. Carter states he has already handled the money and instructs my client not to embarrass herself." Daniel frowned. "That is being taken out of context." The mediator raised an eyebrow. What context would justify withdrawing over $40,000 from a joint account without notice? Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "We were separating. Emotions were high." "Emotions," the mediator repeated, "do not change ownership." For the first time, Daniel directly looked at me. The confidence I had known for years wavered, not shattered, but cracked. The decision that followed was careful and restrained. Temporary access restored, accounts frozen pending review, a requirement for full financial disclosure, no declarations of guilt, no moral commentary, just procedure. Outside the room, Daniel's attorney pulled him aside, speaking in low, urgent tones. Daniel nodded too quickly, his jaw tight. "This restores balance," Laura said quietly as we walked to the elevator. "It does not end anything. Do not let relief turn into complacency." Relief still came, heavy and physical, followed immediately by exhaustion. I felt like I had been holding my breath for weeks without realizing it. The ripple effects showed up slowly. Elaine stopped calling, Patricia did not reach out again. Friends who had watched from the sidelines did not apologize, but they also stopped offering advice. Silence replaced commentary. At the boutique, conversations changed. Customers avoided personal questions. Denise came in one afternoon and spoke only about scarves and weather, her voice careful, her eyes avoiding mine. She did not mention bitterness anymore. Daniel's world began to shrink. I did not hear this from him. I heard it in absence. A gym acquaintance unfollowed him. A friend canceled a dinner invitation. A family gathering went on without him because no one wanted to choose sides publicly. Karma did not arrive as punishment. It arrived as erosion. One night, a text came through. "I didn't expect this to go this way." I stared at the screen. A month earlier, he expected me to beg. "I am following legal advice," I replied. There were no typing dots, no immediate response. At the next meeting, Laura pointed out inconsistencies: a hotel charge dated during a supposed conference, a message sent while Daniel claimed his phone was lost, small contradictions that stacked neatly. "He's undermining his own credibility," she said. "That matters." "Does any of this matter if people still believe him?" I asked. She met my eyes. "In court, yes." The second ruling came 2 weeks later. Still temporary, still procedural, financial transparency ordered, restrictions placed, discovery scheduled. Daniel looked tired now, not angry, just worn down by a process he couldn't charm. Outside the building, he finally spoke to me. "I never wanted this to be a fight," he said. I looked at him, really looked, at the man I had spent years making excuses for. "Then you should not have turned it into one," I said. He had no answer. That night, I sat alone with the ruling papers spread neatly on the table. No celebration, no sense of victory, just a quiet acknowledgement that something had shifted. Control was no longer entirely in his hands. This was not the destination, it was a recalibration. I filed the papers away, changed into comfortable clothes, and turned off my phone. For the first time since the message that ended my marriage, I slept without holding it, knowing that precision, not volume, was what had finally cracked his confidence. Chapter 5. What He Never Took From Me. In the weeks that followed, my life stopped feeling like an emergency. Not because everything was suddenly easy, and not because the pain vanished overnight, but because the ground beneath me finally stopped shifting without warning. The legal process continued quietly in the background, paperwork moving forward the way seasons do, slow and inevitable. There were emails to answer, numbers to confirm, documents to sign. But the constant fear, the kind that makes your heart race every time your phone lights up, slowly loosened its grip. I noticed the change in small moments before I trusted it. One morning, I unlocked the boutique, pushed the door open, and heard the familiar bell ring. Sunlight spilled across the floor just the way it always had. The air smelled faintly of cedar and vanilla. I turned on the lights, straightened a rack of dresses, and realized my hands were steady. No tremor, no tightness in my chest, just presence. I had lived in tension for so long that calm felt unfamiliar, like a language I once knew but had forgotten how to speak. Laura kept reminding me that stability was not the same as finality. Temporary orders were not permanent outcomes. People could still be difficult, delays could still happen. But she also reminded me of what mattered. "You have balance again," she said during one of our check-ins, "and balance gives you choices." Choices. That word carried more weight than victory ever could. Daniel tried, briefly, to regain control. A short email questioning a shared expense, a request for access to something he had ignored for years. Each time, Laura responded calmly, in writing with dates and facts. No emotion, no argument. The more structured the process became, the less room there was for him to perform. And slowly, his messages stopped. His confidence did not collapse all at once. It faded, like someone realizing the room had emptied while they were still talking. I heard about the consequences the way you hear about distant weather, through fragments and secondhand remarks. A mutual acquaintance mentioned Daniel had moved into a smaller apartment across town. Someone else said he looked tired at a work event. Another mentioned he was no longer bringing the new girlfriend around. I did not ask questions. I did not fill in gaps. That was part of my healing, learning when not to look. The consequences that mattered most were quieter. Elaine never called again. No apology, no explanation, just absence. Patricia disappeared too, choosing silence over acknowledgement. I understood then that some people would rather disappear than admit they were wrong. Even Denise changed. She came into the boutique one afternoon about a month after the first ruling. This time she did not hover near the door. She browsed. She picked up a scarf and studied herself in the mirror. "It's nice," she said softly. "It suits you," I replied. She hesitated, then cleared her throat. "I'm sorry if I said anything that wasn't helpful before." It was not a full apology. It was not dramatic. It was the closest she could come without dismantling her own assumptions. I nodded. "Thank you." She held the scarf for another moment, then said quietly, "Sometimes you don't know what's true until you do." "I understand," I said, and I meant it. Letting go of resentment was part of letting go of the past. After she left, I stood behind the counter and realized something important. Her acknowledgement did not heal me. It simply confirmed that I no longer needed it. My life grew smaller in the best possible way, more intentional, less crowded by other people's opinions. I started taking morning walks before opening the shop, slow loops around the neighborhood without music, just listening to my own footsteps. I signed up for a yoga class at a community center and laughed the first time I lost my balance because it felt good to be imperfect without shame. Marissa came by often. Sometimes she helped me steam new inventory. Sometimes she sat behind the counter and talked while I worked. "You're different," she said one afternoon. Different how? Quieter, she said, but grounded, like you stopped trying to explain yourself to people who weren't listening. I tied a ribbon around a customer's purchase and handed it over. When the door closed, I leaned against the counter. I think I was exhausted from trying to make him understand, like if I could explain myself well enough, he would stop hurting me. Marissa shook her head. Some people don't want understanding. They want control. She was right. Daniel never wanted the truth. He wanted a story where he was the hero and I was the problem. I was done playing either role. The final resolution took time. Negotiations, disclosures, signatures that made my hand ache, emails that arrived late at night. And then, one afternoon, without ceremony, it was finished. The official end of something I once believed would last forever. I sat alone at my kitchen table with the final paperwork spread neatly in front of me. I expected relief, or grief, or something dramatic. What I felt was calm. Daniel did not take my dignity. He tried. He tried to shrink me into a stereotype, the unstable wife, the bitter woman, the one people could dismiss without guilt. He tried to scare me financially so I would lose my footing. But he failed. What he never understood was that my strength was never in how loudly I spoke. It was in how steadily I moved, in my ability to pause, observe, and protect myself when it mattered most. I did not win because I destroyed him. I did not win because I embarrassed him or exposed him publicly. I won because I refused to let him destroy me. And if there is one thing I hope stays with you after hearing my story, it is this. If your instincts are whispering, listen. If your peace feels threatened, protect it. Preparation is not paranoia. Silence is not weakness. Self-respect is not something you negotiate away to keep others comfortable. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If any part of it felt familiar, or if you have ever had to choose dignity over comfort, I would love to hear your thoughts. Share what resonated with you, and if you want to hear more stories like this, you're always welcome to stay here with me.